Welcome to Flow Discussions, where today our topic is Why You Mad? Today is a discussion about Lil Nas X and Black queer resilience, which is sponsored by LGBT Faith Leaders of African Descent. It's a nonprofit organization that does LGBT advocacy for people of color. Today, our guest is YaNi, Reverend YaNi Davis, and we'll have her introduce herself in just a few moments or tell us a little bit more about herself. And I am Ryan, aka RJ, and today I'm the moderator. So what we'll do next is look at some of YaNi's work, and then she'll come on.
For Black folks who've considered suicide when homicide is too much. I wonder why white people fear the beautiful black skin we're in. History repeating itself time and time again. It's time for time to begin again. Our people have never been let go. Don't you understand? We don't care about your whiteness no more. You don't elicit fear in us. We want to be left alone to raise our babies, cultivate the land, and ascend. Seems murder and the media go hand in hand these days. Haven't our senses had enough? The smell of burnt black flesh in the air. Popular trees becoming popular as traumas reposted every millisecond. I'm feeling threatened cause Karen and her camera won't leave me alone. Shot down, black man on the phone. Get him, black man on Rome. Sprinting alone on his long journey home. Iced tea and Skittles, it's a riddle. How you rid 'em of source in life, it ain't right. There you go again, picking fights with my siblings. Let freedom ring, ring, ring. They don't ring freedom bells no more. All you hear from my babies are, don't kill us no more. 1, 2, they're coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. They'll still bustin', better hit the floor. Big mama yelling, don't hurt us no more. Cognitive dissonance. The resonance, the sound was deep and full. Revolutionist, the truth in this, his hair was just as wool. The particles and the articles, the pages are so full. Cause of melanin, we must defend. Supremacists are so cruel. White people, please get your cousins. I'm sure there are dozens stuck on the racist rat wheel of a series of unfortunate events. We laugh at your thought of recompense. $1,200 don't flatten the economic curve that bends in the favor of the profit. The profits? Stop it. It's the American horror story written by white lies, witnessed by black eyes. 48 hours later, the poachers still run free. The extinction of endangered species protected and valued more than we see. I am because we are made of that star stuff. Physics sent to remind us we are the original ones. No more waiting in the water, waiting for the slaughter. We baptize one another with healing shouts and victory laps, standing ovation and history claps at the thunderous power of our overcoming. Our cups are overrunning with every drop. Surely goodness and mercy are following me, so you can stop. Blessings chase the righteous. My loyalty, my royalty inside my DNA. We getting tired of this angry righteousness. I'm thinking you should pray. Put an X on our names, diasporic reframe. Hit them with the plot twist. We are the victors in this game. We will leave your Stranger Things in the upside down place. We've been displaced. But now we understand whose world is this? This world is ours, cause we rule the world. And we free, and we fly. Literally, metaphorically, allegorically, the ancestors spoke to me. They put hope in we and wings in our minds. Our consciousness carries us to paradise in this life. Revenge is mine, thus saith the Lord. It's not by power or by might, but by the Spirit high places come down. It's the forces that we fight. The skin we're in, made fearfully. We are wonders in God's sight. I will write for this, our righteousness, until we write this in our time. Peace.
Oh, welcome, Reverend YaNi, the Peace Pastor.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to see your work. It's transformative. We are amazed to have you with us.
Thank you, RJ. Such an honor to be here, to just sit down, to be fluid and free in all the ways, whether it's our art, whether it's our bodies, whether it's how we love. I'm so ready for the conversation.
Before we embark on the conversation, can you tell us and the audience a little bit about yourself?
For sure. I am an ordained minister. Somehow made it through the process, and they said they signed off on my my radical, non-traditional ways of thinking and being in the world. Thank you, Jesus. I am also I was known as the Peace President. I founded what's known as the Peace People's Movement back in 2012, where as a hip hop artist, myself and my band. We were in Atlanta, Georgia, just doing community organizing, playing our shows, kind of getting people galvanized around healing the community, healing the land. We'd be at urban farms, we'd be at the coffee shops, we'd be at the club, we'd be wherever the people were. That's where we were going. So founder of the Peace People's Movement. I am a kidney transplant survivor. I feel like that is very important to say, that in this body, I've been through many phases and iterations in this body. And I give thanks for this second life, as I call it, that I'm now living. And as a survivor of kidney transplant, I went on to found my SupaNatural life, my super with the A, my SupaNatural life, give it a little flavor, a little flair, all about providing holistic communal care to folks living with chronic conditions of the body and the mind, and also to provide education to folks around accessibility and ableism, also to provide coaching, creativity, and community to all of us in the global village that need this care now more than ever, as folks tend to say. So I'm a poet, I'm a prophet, I'm a preacher, I'm a teacher, I'm a lover of the people, and here to share my truths tonight. Ooh, there we go.
I love that. It sounds like you exemplify love and healing, especially when you just talked about your second life. Your second life, because that's related to our topic today, which is queer Black resilience. And we're going to focus on Lil Nas X and his most recent / controversial video, which is Call Me by Your Name.
Yes.
Have you seen the video?
I've seen the video. I've watched it several times, picked up my viewing ever since I knew we were gonna engage in the conversation. And so, yes, I've had my eyes on it, and I'm so grateful for this art and how it is influencing people and impacting people and shaking some folks up.
Awesome. Then we can go ahead and get started. So I would love to know, what was your initial response to the video?
I was like, you better dance with that fictional devil. That's what you better do. And I got to thinking, growing up in the church, my father has been a pastor for 45 years, about to retire. But as I think about growing up in the church, so often they talk about hypocrisy. They talk about, folks doing things that they're not, necessarily preaching, right? They're doing something different than what they're preaching from the pulpit or from the pews in the church as the ushers, as the elders. And so I got to thinking, look, some folks been dancing with the devil their whole lives, right? Doing wrong, ain't been treating people right, lacking that self-love, right? Lacking that compassion for others. And so that was the first thing that I got to thinking. Some folks been dancing with the devil their whole lives. And also it's time for them to get free, time for folks to get free. So that was the initial thought. What about you?
Ooh. You know, so I thought it was I watched it multiple times. I
Yeah,
needed to see the visuals
yeah,
and kind of like exegete
yeah,
the so what I found prolific
yeah,
is some of the lyrics. He talks about um self-acceptance. And
yeah,
so he had to leave Earth to
yeah,
go into this space
yeah,
where he could love himself.
yes,
And then also, which I found very interesting, when he descended to hell, because, you know, he was told in church that
yeah,
if you're gay,
yeah,
you're going to go to hell.
yeah.
Not that many people have read the text in the original languages
Ooh,
or
ooh,
understand what it says in the original languages,
hello.
nor understand the culture, but that's okay
That's all right.
for us who do the work.
Yeah,
Um, and I thought it was really interesting that he twerked on the devil. And
yeah,
twerking is, you know, from my understanding of hip hop, is a is an empowerment
yeah,
dance for women. Like they
yeah,
take control of their bodies
yeah,
and they say, "This is how I choose to use it." But I also have looked at old African
yes,
videos.
absolutely.
It's from the motherland. It's in our blood.
It's in us.
It's
It's
in our DNA.
exactly.
And so I thought that it was amazing that he used this dance, which is one of empowerment.
Yes.
And he did it with the devil, but he danced with the devil, and then
Yeah.
he killed the devil.
Yes. Yes.
He
Yes.
killed the devil, and he made like hell his. He took the power from Satan in
Absolutely.
hell.
Absolutely. Like, and even as I think about what you were saying about him dancing with the devil, like it even makes me think about this play on masculinity, femininity, right? How do we reconcile that as a people, even as we have been Americanized, as we've been westernized, as we've been forced to conform and fit into these constructs? What does it mean to break free there and for men to dance freely, for men to move their hips, for men to summon, the power and the spirit in this very real way? That's what our people been doing. When you catch the spirit, you catch the Holy Ghost, you don't know what your body about to do. Okay?
So
So
right.
that
Yes.
there made me like, I was just so fascinated by that. And even the imagery, I thought I had no issues with it. Like, so many of us have had to conquer hell, or this
Mm.
understanding of hell that's been force fed to us, that has been killing us. And so
Yeah.
we have the victory in terms of being free in our minds and our bodies and our expressions after we've conquered hell ourselves.
So, you know, it's wonderful that you're talking about that's a sense of Black power
Yeah,
and Black resilience of how we conquer hell because, you know, when I revisit church,
yeah,
it's funny, those people are still afraid of hell.
yeah,
Um, and so the fact that this secular artist
yeah,
has found a way to a very creative way
yeah,
and an alternate illustration to
yeah.
do what Christ has done, which was take the keys, take the power of death, hell, and the grave.
And I mean, some people might find me, a little blasphemous or whatever, a little heretical, but in the same way Jesus rose again. Look, I was out, okay, for 3 days, and I came back, okay. So look, if we want to talk about the church, if we want to talk about conquering hell, if we want to talk about being born again, hi, I'm a witness. I'm a
Yes.
witness. Thank you, Lil Nas X,
Thank
for
you.
showing folks what that liberated mind is all about, and how we infuse the Black aesthetic, we
Mm.
infuse art, we infuse dance, we infuse prayer, we infuse, look, I know you've had some moments, RJ, where you felt like you was living in hell here because of these
Yes.
people.
Yes, yes. That's so real. Like in the middle of church, and I was extremely active in the church
Yeah,
and doing everything that I was told to do. And I was like, whoa, I'm still not exactly at the place of happiness.
yeah,
There's still, levels of authenticity which I hadn't reached because there's not space given for human exploration.
yeah,
There's not space given for truth. There is a box that one is placed in and then
yep,
told to go live for Jesus.
yep.
Like-
And I mean, look, Jesus was going to see everybody. He was hanging
Mm,
out all kind of places. So I be hanging out all kind of places. You know what I'm saying? And spreading
yes.
the light, spreading the love, right, and showing people this alternate way of being in the world that is free.
Mm,
That is fun, that is happy. Often people ask me, because I'm a pastor, right? How does that live for me, my sexuality and being a pastor in church and Christianity and all. I'm like, Jesus didn't say nothing about nothing. Jesus talked about love. Jesus used these parables. And even as I watched Lil Nas X talk about the storyline in the lyrics of the song,
mm,
he was saying he was telling a story from the night before when he went to go kick it with somebody, kick it with the folks in the entertainment industry, and was recognizing, ooh, there is this battle between light and dark, between good and bad, between the shadowy spaces and like the places that are more life-giving. So when I heard that, and I was like, oh, Jesus was a storyteller using the
mm,
parables. And in parable theory, they even ask us to not bring God into the text in our first reading.
mm.
So in the same way, we not necessarily going to God on the first reading in the parables. I wasn't going to God in the first reading of this song, of this visual. I was just like, speak to me, tell me something. What we looking at? What we doing here? Rather than taking it out of context and getting mad that the devil was depicted as gay.
I love that. And just kind of revisiting some of the I guess illustrations. We talked about um Little Nas X dancing, but I
Yeah.
love that he had on a wig.
Yes.
He was dressed in pink.
Yes.
Um because as we know, um masculinity, femininity is a construct.
Yeah.
And it's something that you're socialized. So
Yeah.
who chose to socialize us this way? And so the fact that he broke that barrier and defied, stereotypes or what we call social norms,
Yep.
it was really, really empowering because these sacred spaces
Yeah.
actually they conform to societal
Yeah.
norms and
Yes.
hold us to that.
Yep.
And I know that, as a free person,
Yeah.
how was your experience like coming to the
Yeah.
place where now you're free? You don't have to wear a long dress.
Yeah.
You don't have to wear a hat to church.
Yep. Look now, I'll wear a hat, but I'll look. Let me get my big old fedora with my feather in it. Okay. Anyway, um, they even used to joke about it growing up, like when I was, coming of age. I didn't like no frilly dress. I didn't like, what I'm saying, them stockings and them heels and them situations they was trying to put me in.
Mm,
They even joke about at my dad's church about how when it was time for the debutante ball or whatever, I came to the final rehearsal in my white, debutante ball dress and my chucks, okay? Because look. I got the balance. I'm figuring, how to be free in my
Mhm.
expression. So that was 16 years of age, walking into church, performing and rapping and ministering at all of these churches all around New York, at what was called the underground holy hip hop scene, with my
Mhm.
ties, you know what I'm saying, with my bow ties, and just being free and how I wanted to be. And so it was definitely a journey, and it has been a journey. I even a few months ago, my dad was like, finally, I let him be my friend on Facebook. All right, then, you know. Whereas mom has kind of, while I was healing through kidney disease, mom was actually with me. And so got to experience my life and how I be, and, how I love, how I show up in the world in a deeper way. And then dad finally becomes my Facebook friend and is like, baby, this queer word, like he's crying, like, I don't understand, baby. Like, I don't want nobody judging you. I don't want you to miss no opportunities. Why you got to use that word? And so it's been a journey to have to explain to people that I love that, like, hey, I'm helping somebody get free. I'm serving as an example of authenticity, right? I'm standing in my truth in a way that I don't have to act out and limit myself and limit my thinking
Mhm.
as a free person. And so it makes me think about even I like language and definitions. And so if it's okay, RJ, I wanted to bring the
Oh,
definition
yes, yes.
of masculinity, qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of men. The behavioral, cultural, or psychological traits typically associated with one sex, right? So traditionally, you know, attributes regarded as characteristics of. And so when I think of gender, I think about how gender is the range. It talks about gender being the range of characteristics pertaining to and differentiating between femininity and masculinity. And depending on the context, these characteristics may include biological sex, sex based social structures, or gender identity. So if we're talking about these constructs, if we're talking about the either or, if we're talking about the duality, right? But if we're talking about wholeness and feeling into this artistic expression that we saw and we witnessed, right? We got to dive into the both and, but also as it relates to
Yes.
this expression that we have. Okay. So not sure if that answered the question, but a little bit more around how I've had to wrestle, with this balance and what feels true to me. What feels true to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that you share that and you see it as part of your freedom journey,
Yes.
so that other people, some of
Yeah.
our audience members, can um, embrace, whatever it is that they feel on the inside,
Yeah.
and feel free
Mhm.
to have the experience, to
Yeah.
go on that journey.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. So, what does it mean for LGBTQIA elemental P
Yeah.
folks to be resilient? Because that's what I see, and we've mentioned the word multiple times: resilience and
Mhm.
power, and and um, and reclaiming.
Yeah.
What does it mean for our people to be resilient, as
Yeah.
experienced in this video?
As I think about our people being resilient, I think about all of the isms that have come, to make us feel less than, make us feel unworthy, make us feel like we don't belong, make us feel like we are of a debased mind, you know. And then I flip it on its head, and I'm like, ooh, my God is love. My God is joy. My God is peace. My God is overcoming. My God is resurrection. My God is ascension. My God
Mhm.
is transformation. And so when I sit with the imagery in the video, I think of resurrection. I think of power. I think of being empowered. I think of fluidity. I think of the colors, the colorfulness of our people, of the ones that make a choice to live in these gray sort of areas, the in between areas, the areas that people maybe don't quite understand because they don't live our reality. And so the video definitely made me think of that, how God is joy, God is love, God is peace, God is happiness. Even when it feels like we're living in hell here, we have the victory. That's
Yes,
what I
yes. Oh, that is so powerful because when you talk about victory,
yeah,
one of the challenges in the community,
yeah,
this is the reason I ended up going to seminary and graduating last year was
yes,
um, when I discovered in 2015, I moved to New York and I
yeah,
discovered that LGBT homelessness
yeah,
was a pervasive social issue
yeah,
and that it stemmed from evangelical
yeah,
teaching and
yeah,
preaching, and how children, the youngest I met was 9 years old, put as young as nine, being put out of their homes. I
yep,
met somebody who was put out of his home. He didn't even know what it meant when he told his parents that he was attracted to the same genders, but he was put out by co-ed parents
yes,
at the age of, I think, 11.
yeah,
He didn't even really know what it meant,
no,
but he was put out by his sanctified, saved, Holy Ghost filled. So
yeah,
anyway, this is a social problem, and people were um, kicking their children out of their homes. They were
yeah,
being excommunicated from their churches, and part of that, the response is, "Oh well, if these people don't love me, if my church doesn't love me, then
yeah,
God must not love me."
yeah,
And so when you talk about resilience, this that's there is those experiences can cause people to internalize and
yeah,
self-hate, which Little Nas X talked about how much he hated himself, how much he wanted to kill himself, etc. And when
yeah,
he just realized, he said, God made me like this, that
yeah,
gave him power to say, oh,
mhm,
let me reimagine, let me move forward. Let me stop listening to these wrong people, to these wrong voices. And he was able to reinvent himself, accept himself, and love and look for love. And that's what that's really what this is about to me. This
yeah,
resilience
yeah,
means hope, and people can find life in
yeah,
themselves and connect to the creator who loves them no matter who they love.
no matter. We
God gave you the gift to love.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and as I hear you talking, I'm like, as I think about church life and folks being kicked out the church and shunned and blah da 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 da, it made me think about how they talk about separation of church and state. I think this next phase we're stepping into is a separation of church and God, because God God spoke to me and told me that I am whole and I'm complete, and that there is no separation of my sexuality, my sensuality, and my spirituality. Right. So what does it mean to even have to free ourselves from these church spaces, free ourselves from doctrine, free ourselves from misinterpretations and poor theology around these scriptures? And I very often talk about this. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. We don't never get to John 3:17 that says, for God sent not his son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved, that the world with him might be saved, that the world by way of him might be saved. So what happens when we read the text in its totality? We recognize, oh yeah, Jesus came for everybody and ain't condemning not one of us.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I
So
love that.
yeah,
Um, yes, it's so powerful that we are empowered to love ourselves, and
Yeah.
that we don't depend on someone else to be the go-between
Yeah.
between us and the creator. And this
Yeah.
is where, this is quite empowering to me. I find that the Christian model often, not always, but
Mhm.
the hierarchies
Mm.
are destructive and keep people from actually connecting to the creator themselves. And so that's the most powerful thing, is have your own relationship, if you are a Christian,
Yeah.
um, and if you follow that tradition, and because that's a way to empower oneself
Yeah.
and find what they need,
Ab-
and again walk in victory. This is very, very, very powerful. And self-love to me is the
Love.
beginning. I never heard about self-love when I was in the traditional or evangelical or
Yeah.
Pentecostal church, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever.
Hellfire brimstone
Yeah. Yeah.
um, church. I never heard about self-love. So, and I thought it was quite interesting where everybody wants you to love Jesus, but they don't
Yeah.
teach you how to love yourself first. And
Yeah.
then so many were miserable in miserable marriages and look so depressed and down, but they are in those pews every Sunday
Every
morning,
Sunday, okay, claiming the victory,
claiming
shouting,
the victory.
whatever else. And I was like, but it's
You're
not
not happy.
good.
You're miserable.
You're not good at the end of the day. God wants us to be good and well,
Mm.
and liberated even. And that made me think of James Cone,
Oh, yes.
and Black liberation theology. And I just wanted to read something real quick, if that's
Yes, I love Cone. I
awesome.
love that book.
Black theology and Black power. Okay, Black theology and Black power. Okay. There is no place here for a reward. In fact, man is now made free for obedience without worrying about a pat on the back from God. He now knows that he is right with God because God has put him in the right. This new gift of freedom means that he can now be all for the neighbor. To allow
Mm.
one's concern to be directed toward heaven is to deny the freedom. It means that in some way that what one does is worthy and thereby guarantees his favor with God. The free Christian man cannot be concerned about a reward in heaven. Rather, he is a man who, through the freedom granted in Christ, is ready to plunge himself into the evils of the world, revolting against all inhuman powers which enslave him. He does not seek salvation. He's free. So, he oftentimes uses he language, but
Mhm.
look, we put all of us into the text, right? We put all of us into the text and we live freely. We live freely. Often it's this thought of what's to come, what is next, the great by and by, the hereafter, this afterlife and heaven. But what happens when we try to establish heaven on earth, right?
Mm.
What
Right.
happens when we find paradise in this life? What happens when we find freedom in this life? I believe that's what God wants for us, rather than some notion of hell and death and dying. Yeah.
That's no, that I agree. It's so disempowering,
Yeah.
that kind of like theological, the great by and by.
Yeah.
So what I find in those, at least in my experience, that
Yeah.
those churches are not active politically and social, that they don't establish structures
For sure.
to consistently help people to
Yeah.
make things better, that
Yep.
they cannot even speak articulately or from an informed perspective about many social ills that are perpetuated by the own wrong theologies.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so again, like that's very empowering to know that you can be victorious here and you can make things better for people here. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's easy, but if you love yourself
Yes.
and you're working in concert with your community,
Yes.
and like you can make things better, and like you said, have heaven on earth, or at least make improvements and feel good about that, instead of I can't wait till I get out of here. Jesus coming Soon. He's coming
Look,
soon. We're gonna get out of here.
but that's why so many, in the community are, saying, well, I can't make it here.
Yep.
I can't deal here, right? My mind, the influences, what I'm being told about myself, what I'm being
Mhm.
told about how I love, who I love, how I dress, it makes it hard for people to want to be here and in this life and in this reality. And so I talk about, look, I've been resurrected for such a time as this so that people can have an example of what it is to show up in spirit and in truth, to love the people, right? And to lead them to what I call freedom land. Sending people signal one is Groundhog's Day is every morning, quarantine and lockdown, keeping me from my performance on the block. It starts to storm and impact so enormous. All the future generations, what it is, global warming. Like, is it people? Is it profit? Is it benefiting us? Green from the earth or in the green that we trust? I'm a lust after the future because the present is a presence. After Afrofuturistic gifting, and they wondering who sent it. I'm walking a freedom land. My tribe gonna hold my hand, and if I don't make it through the night, I keep walking, walking, walking till I see the light. I keep walking, walking, walking till I see the light. So some of us have had to keep walking, 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 even in the midst of these church spaces, even in the midst of these communal spaces, right? Even in these familial spaces that couldn't get us, couldn't comprehend us, couldn't understand us, couldn't love the sinner in us. And we've had to keep walking until we saw the light, until we experienced that freedom, until we experienced salvation, which meant we saved ourselves from the ridicule, saved ourselves from their comments, saved ourselves from their hate. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's
thank God
wonderful.
I'm still here, thank God.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So I was going to ask, what does it look like for LGBT
yeah,
folks to reclaim that power? But that's you just gave it an example of what that looks like, and I think it's so much more powerful when we find that self love and when we're able to walk in our freedom to
yeah.
share that with community. Can you speak about how you've been in community and either have helped or received help, from
Yeah.
your LGBT brothers, sisters,
Yeah.
partners, whatever?
Yeah, so I think for me, a big change and transition happened when I was in Atlanta, and actually a part of like an Afrocentric Christian ministry,
Mm.
where I got to experience people that were living freely, right? That said, look, I don't have time for the patriarchy. I don't have time for the sexism. I don't have time for the homophobia. I don't have time for the ageism and none of it. And I can be free in my expression as an African descended person that follows Christ. So, first of all, having the example presented before me was transformational, right? Was edifying, and lifted a bit of this burden, a bit of this, oh, God don't love me through and
Mm.
through, right? Helping me break free from the look, God, if my life and how I love and how I feel about myself and others is wrong, take me out of here. So having the example, one, was so beneficial and so transformational of people being free. Folks got to get free. Folks got to get free. Oppression is real, suppression is real, repression is real, but it's freedom time. The second thing is being exposed to folks that were interpreting the word in different ways, right? Weren't coming from a Eurocentric patriarchal lens, right? But we're
Yeah.
centering Blackness, we're centering women, we're centering queer theology in order to create a greater picture and a total picture of what these writers and these scribes and these griots of old were trying to tell us about their socio historical context at the time. So, yup, folks that were interpreting the word and the world differently. And then I think part of what I was touching on just now, it was like, once we deconstruct this word, right? Once we deconstruct this word, once we reconstruct this word, how do we integrate this word and live into it, right? How do we live into it in a practical way, right? So how do I live my womanist, life in a practical way with my radical subjectivity and my redemptive self dance, right? How do I do that day to day? How do I show up and love, my Black brothers, my Black siblings, the Black women of the world, the Black children of the world in a new way? Working in the foster care system, having to show up for children that had gotten kicked out of their homes. And now here I am providing care for them. Working with youth around mindfulness and hip hop, teaching mindfulness and hip hop in Richmond in the Bay Area. And being like, look, I know these emotions, they're going to get out of control. I know that depression is going to come. I know that anxiety is going to come. I know society is telling you you're less than and not enough, that you're ugly, that you aren't right, that your skin ain't good, okay? But then I had to look, y'all, tap in, and honor the truth, honor the spirit, honor the reality that's coming up, that says you are beautiful, you are wonderful, you are abundant, that God takes joy in you, God takes delight in you, God takes pride in you, no matter how you showing up in this world. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's so powerful. When you mentioned text, that's one thing, like pre-seminary for me is, and I started doing in-depth studies just about everything. And I really thought I went to seminary for Black liberation theology.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of it, because as a Black person, I was wrestling. I was like, why don't they talk about Blackness, in church, in the Pentecostal Apostolic Church? It's kind of like you get Jesus and that's enough and that's everything and you don't have any problems anymore. Or as you have problems because people don't like you. No, there is systemic issues against us, and we need to talk about that as Black people in church, but also some of the other. So I began to look and search scriptures years and years and years ago, and it was because of what I would hear in prayer. It would be because what I would hear in meditation.
That's right.
And so God would say something, I would write it down, and it would be opposite of what they were saying. I was like, so my tradition is what I do. My personal is like, I go back 3 times. If I hear something that sounds a little different, I'm like, hold up, let me just so I go back. And so I was hearing these things that were different from my tradition. And so when I started doing research, I was like, but seminary really taught me to exegete and do the research. And I was coming up with the same answers, but the seminary process gave me language.
Come on, language.
And so it, in so many instances, confirmed what I had heard in prayer, what I had discerned through text. And I got happy because I was like, oh, I knew these people were wrong because my spirit didn't agree with it. And it gave me a newness of life, but also empowered because, again, the hierarchical systems of the church are really oppressive to your regular cisgender heterosexual people, but also to women, to children, to the LGBT folks, etc.
I'm getting hot, RJ.
The fire, the internal fire is heating you up. And so, seminary was really liberating because it gave me tools, but it also put me in, it gave me a network also where we could have these discussions. But because what I also recall is after asking leaders questions about text, people would get mad if I asked questions. Not trying to go any specific, but ask questions. So it was very empowering, giving language, but also providing tools that I couldn't get or didn't get free
Absolutely.
seminary. So self-love is something that I was able to work through.
Yeah.
And then when you love yourself and you acquire tools, you just want to share them and
Absolutely.
liberate other people and allow them to be the best them that God has created them to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure, throughout that seminary matriculation, right? We started exploring inclusive language for God, right? We started dispelling some of the myths and these half truths and these pseudo truths in our ancient Eastern historical text that we call the Bible. We started thinking about, okay, well, did Noah really build an ark and then the flood came and then the rainbow and the dove and we got to thinking about, oh, how did we end up on the planet? Was it really a Adam and Eve that birthed the whole thing and right? Incestuous living in order to populate the planet and so we sit and we wrestle with some of these questions.
Mhm.
Oh, what was that encounter that Jesus had with so and so and da 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 da? Did that really happen historically, or are we recounting the miracles of Jesus, of a historical Jesus, in a way that makes sense to us? The Bible was written 2,000 some odd years after Jesus walked the earth. So then when we start learning all of these things and diving into
Critical.
what we didn't, critical thinking. But it's almost like look, let's go there. It's almost like a secret society where people are asked to hold some of these truths and some of these ways that people can be free, all for the sake of keeping tradition, Christian tradition alive. And I would even say keeping white Christian nationalism alive, keeping white supremacy alive, keeping patriarchy alive, because we're listening to Pauline text,
Ooh, you went there.
versus what Jesus had to say to
Mm.
the people. Too much? I don't know. Are there any comments coming in? Are people like, look, that Reverend YaNi, kick her out the church? Look, commit her to the something. But look, we sit with these things, we wrestle with these things late at night, okay?
Yes, we do.
We do our dances with the devil so that we can rise again, victorious, whole, and healed. Healed.
Mm.
They don't
Yes.
want us to be, they don't want that for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's mm, I just want to revisit this for a second again.
Yeah.
When you mentioned about God not having a gender, it was amazing to kind of read in the text and have those discussions about
Yeah.
how that literally, it says he, and
Yeah.
how that was literally made up, and
Yeah.
how that empowers, the males, you
Yes.
know, and prepares us to
Yeah.
dominate, and that's even purported in the church. And so the way I look at the divine is this kind of like large circle, but
Yeah.
within is time. Within that deity is also gender. So
Yeah.
if all genders are within God and God is not a gender,
Yeah.
it means the same thing for us. And we know that half of our DNA comes from one parent and
Yep.
half comes
Exactly.
those, and that should, to me, that's a model of inclusivity as well, inclusive of everything all the options of the DNA, whether
Yes.
it's race, whether it's gender, all of the other constructs. And to me, that's very powerful when I think of the DNA and everything being within God and how that model is in us as well.
Yeah.
So talking about that, my next question is,
Yeah.
does the video represent hope to you? And
Yeah.
if not, say what it represents to you.
Yep. The video definitely represents hope for me. It represents freedom of expression. It represents liberation. It represents the Black aesthetic, just being all, right? Being this notion of all that you're talking about, being this notion of everything, right? Being
Mm,
this notion of no thing, nothing, nothingness, and everything simultaneously. It makes me think of the freedom that I have to walk this earth, to live into all of these different dimensions and realities and show up well. Whether I am with folks, the white folks somewhere, and I gotta, whatever we talking about over here, to be able to show up authentically. We done with all that code switching. We done with all of that. Got to put on a this and a that to show up well. Let's stop. It makes me think that even as I show up in Black conservative spaces, right,
mm,
I'm able to say, look, I am leading with love, and y'all just need to love up on me too. It makes me think about taking these as we were talking about these notions of personification and anthropomorphization
mm,
of deities, right, and recognizing that really it is spirit. There is a spirit that is moving and having its way with all of us day in and day out, right? So what does it mean when we take that fictionalized image of the devil running rampant in the earth and we free ourselves and say, oh, no, 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 no. We actually have the power to speak to negative energies, negative forces, negativity coming up in this earthly reality, and not feel like the devil is chasing after us or coming for us, or even that God is a man on high looking down on us and judging us and in the bedroom with us when we trying to get a little freer in our body. What happens when we break those chains? And so that is what the video represented to me. Freedom, 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 freedom. It represented art, art, art. It represented beauty, beauty, beauty. It represented love, love, love. It represented victory, victory, victory.
Yes, yes. We've this conversation has been, Christian heavy. And so, I just want to reiterate that this is for all people, no matter, what you believe,
Yeah.
um, um, or what tradition you subscribed to.
Right.
Like there are negative and positive energies, and we can speak to the energies, and we can also shift the energies, which is what you're talking about. The transformative power of belief and through speech and through being, and that we can do all of that. And again, if we find love in the creator, which we can,
Yeah.
and love ourselves, we can transform our community through the expression when we become that love personified. I love that.
Yeah.
And that's what we do here at Faith Leaders of African Descent, LGBT FLoAD. We love and accept all people, and we advocate for right, for love, for justice, and there is a home for you here. I am just so happy that
Yes.
we've had this conversation. Reverend YaNi, I love saying that.
Thank you for having me. Oh, look, I'm still sinking into that. I'd be like, Reverend, when people say Reverend Davis, I'd be like, that is my daddy. Who are y'all talking to? So thank you for seeing me, for honoring me. It's been a journey getting to this place in this body, with this expression, with this freedom, with this mindset. So thank you, dear RJ, for honoring me, seeing me, and for allowing me to just talk my talk.
Yes, yes. We welcome you into this space, but also, I do want to make mention, there's so many things that are going on in the world, inside of, in this country, globally. There are acts of hatred against
Yeah.
LGBT people, Black and brown people, Asian folks. And, I just would like to encourage everybody to,
Yeah.
take a moment for self-care, which
Yeah.
means to love on yourself. And it means to um take care of the gift that God gave you, which is you. Like,
Yeah.
and to take that moment, love on yourself so that you can be better in the community and so that we can lean on each other, which is such a powerful act and an act of humility. But it takes a village. That's what we say.
Come on, look, the village raised me, all right? That is one thing for sure. Thank God for the village, right? That has loved me and witnessed me, seen me and heard me. And so before we go, just wanted to share some announcements,
Yes.
my organization, my SupaNatural Life, we will be having AI April, right? Where we're talking about spirit technology, where we're talking about all of these virtual ways and these digital ways that coaches, creatives, and community leaders are finding God, are accessing spirit, and are transforming their community. So please, please, please be with us next week for AI April. And then we got Melanin May coming, Melanin May. And the new wave is all about how I do church, how I roll church out and roll out inspiration for the people. And also, family, at this time, I am needing to take my SupaNatural life to the next level. I have a team full of folks that are ready to roll out this coaching, this creativity, and this community, this communal care that was so essential to me when I was unwell and as I was growing up and as I was coming into my own. So we have launched hold on, family, I Love You a Latte fundraising campaign. And we are asking that people would donate the cost of one latte to 20 lattes or more lattes a month to help us make our work sustainable. As we speak to accessibility and ableism, as we provide care for the LGBTQ community, as we think about lower income folks that maybe can't pay for the high level coaching, can't pay to have someone walk alongside them and journey with them. I have a group of holy listeners, holy, entirely or fully holy listeners that are ready to provide this care. And I need your help, family. I need your help. So if you got 5 on it, head on over to our website, mysupernaturallife.org, and we would love for you to join the community. Join the community. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We want to thank everybody that our audience and participants. Well, first, we want to thank YaNi for coming with us. We also want to thank those of you who have joined us. We have FLoAD Conversations is a monthly event that occurs around the third week of each month. And we thank you for joining us today. Make sure to join us in the future and live a life of love.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.